Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're going to jump right into a few of the updates related to the Mecum Kissimmee auction. So what I'm going to do here is share my screen. And I did a preview video. Many of you know, if you've continued to watch the channel, which I appreciate, you know that I love covering some of these cars that are going to auction. Now, this coming weekend, you may recall, is going to be the big weekend because you're going to have more of these cars, towards the tail end of the 2-week period that are going to go, for instance, like Saturday the 18th, this coming Saturday, and so on, that Friday even. There's only 2 cars that I'm going to mention right now in terms of updates. So the first one is this 62. This went across on January 12th. Now, I had plans to go out, and my plans did change. A buddy of mine was out there. He did send me some photos, nothing crazy detailed of all of these Lincolns, but I did have a few photos, kind of boots on the ground, if you will. And when I did my overview, I kind of really kept it high level. And all I can tell you on this car is that it to me, overall, it kind of looks like a nice car. You're going to see that there's no undercarriage or super detailed images here. I think I just went through all of them. And that's one of the challenges that I've kind of expressed in the past with going, just with these auction photos. Now, I will reinforce that something that I do appreciate, and I said this prior, Mecum has updated their website. So you can see, to me, it has a much better look and feel. There's a little bit more detail in terms of the specs. It's just nicely laid out. Of course, here you've got a ton of highlights, which includes basically the bullet-pointed version, which I really appreciate. The thing that sticks out the most is that this does have an American Racing 5-spoke, so a gray 20-inch wheel, modified lowered suspension. I'm assuming it's maybe just static dropped a little bit, but 67,000 miles, so kind of low miles overall. In addition, I don't think I mentioned this, but they are starting to incorporate more videos, which I think is an important thing. And I probably have this blocked or something like that, which I can't maybe watch at the moment. But certainly that's a key thing, right? Because it's 2025, videos are everywhere, and this was a great addition to their website. But again, a great look and feel of the site. 45,000 the bid goes on, and what that means is essentially there was a reserve, and after that they can cut a deal if someone saw it and things like that. But basically it means it did not sell. It's a Mecum spin on saying reserve not hit, which I can appreciate. So the bid goes on with this one. The only other car I want to mention at this point is this 61 Lincoln Continental convertible. So the first thing that's going to potentially stick out to you, or maybe it won't, it has the 15-inch wheels. So it has that 64 and up wheel cover, aka hubcap. Now, again, I did not see this car in person. I will tell you, somebody that's pretty prominent in the Lincoln scene, he commented on a post that I made, and he said that he saw the car in person, and he mentioned, in his opinion, it was rough. What does that mean? Well, let's look at just a couple of things, because again, I didn't do an in-depth review of each of these cars. We can see in this image right here, the seat looks pretty good. The carpet looks pretty good, right? But if you're a Lincoln fanatic, or you've been following these cars, you'll know that some of this stuff has been redone. Well, that's not the end of the world. For instance, the carpet doesn't look bad, but it's not the original carpet. So those are the type of things that might turn someone off. Or if you're going to replace the carpet, replace it with something like what Jim Wallace, sells here in Florida, the most accurate kits that you're going to find anywhere. But let's look a little bit deeper. If we look at the armrest here piece of the door, we look at the door itself and some of the material that's here, I can just tell that this has been redone at some point. And that's not a bad thing, but a lot of folks are looking for kind of an untouched Lincoln, something that has been well maintained, but kind of has that originality to it. And when you look here, like even behind where the gauges are at, you can kind of see that it's black, but then you've got the walnut look here, the lighter color, I should say. And then also you see that it has the aftermarket air conditioning. Again, not the end of the world. Some people, whoever spent $75,000 on this car, might be happy with it. But I would tell you that, it wouldn't suit me well. Maybe someone's going to buy this car and then blow it apart. I don't know why you would spend $75,000 and then make it a resto mod, but hey, to each their own, right? There's typically a buyer for all of these cars. So again, you'll kind of see some stuff. You see a tweeter here that's in the door pod, just a couple things that probably aren't going to sit too well with someone that's looking for kind of an original car, if you will. We can see the sheen here on top of the pod for the passenger side of this dash, which, by the way, I'll eventually get to some new podcast episodes where I'll talk about the interior differences of the 61, 62, 63. But you can see here, it's like kind of a multi-piece dash setup. You can just see the back of the seats, for instance, right? There's just not a tight fit and finish. There's just kind of a bunch of little things to me that it amazes me that the car went for $75,000. That's great for the seller, but I would look at it and say, wow, there definitely could be some improvements. I've talked about this in the past. You can get that the quadruple OT, it's often referred to, so for zero, but I call it the quadruple zero steel wool. And you could put some Brasso or some good polish and it'll clean that kind of clear coat sheen looking off. We can see even here the speakers. Again, for a lot of people that might be fine. It's got a lot of things done to it that kind of made me feel like, hey, this car had been, messed with a little bit years and years ago. Sure, all that stuff can be brought back, but it's going to take money. And this one sold for $75,000. I briefly hit upon this has a newer air-conditioned compressor, which kind of reinforces it has aftermarket AC. It wasn't just an upgrade from the factory AC. And then, oh, by the way, it has the 2-port, not the 3-port fuel pump. And we can tell because the easy tell is the 3-port does not have these 2 screws on top of it. You've got more lines here for the gas fuel lines. And what I will say in closing, for anybody that might be new to the channel and you might be thinking, what does he mean by 2-port, 3-port? On the original Lincolns, they had a harder 3-port fuel pump. And that 3rd port is a return line. So I think it's like an 1/8-inch line. And what that does is any of the excess fuel, it can return all the way back to the fuel tank. And believe it or not, that is a thing that the folks that have worked on these cars and been around these cars for 40 plus years will tell you, in most cases, it is best to have a 3-port. I've had some people that say, hey, I have a 2-port, I've never had an issue. Well, I always go back to the saying, if it's not broke, certainly don't fix it. But I will tell you, in Florida with the hot climate, having that fan shroud, having that 3-port, having some of that insulation around those fuel lines, bottom line is you don't want that fuel to start baking and getting so hot that it's kind of vaporizing before it gets to your intake, right? And into your engine, because then you're going to have what they call vapor lock. So again, a little bit extra I wanted to kind of throw in there, but what I will tell you is that so far, a little surprising, we had, to me, the nicer of the 2 cars that didn't sell. Now, of course, we don't know what the reserve is. And then you had the car, to me, that maybe was a little bit rough around the edges, sell for $75,000. So it actually was $75,900. So call it $76,000. I think there's fees on both sides, so that cost could maybe even be elevated. I forget if the 75 might actually be I think there's an asterisk where it'll say that it includes the fees, but give or take $76,000. Let me know what you think. If you're new to the channel, please, again, consider subscribing. If you're a return viewer, I can't thank you enough. Stay on the rise. Happy New Year, everyone. Let's continue on with 2025. Anybody that's impacted by the wildfires in California, I'm praying for you guys. I know there's a lot going on out there. I've got friends out there, and I'm certainly just very saddened by the folks that have lost their homes and their photos and their memories and the lives that are lost. So obviously, folks, people over materialistic things any day of the week. That's what I always preach. But at the end of the day, many people took heed. They got out. And it's just a disturbing situation to see folks return to their home and it's literally ash and chimneys. It's just very, very sad. So if you're impacted or your family is, I'm thinking of you guys. Stay on the rise, everyone, the best you can. Take care, everyone. Peace.